I've always been in this business almost now, 45 years now. And I started when I was 20, and I started in New York, and I was on All My Children. I was the original Children of All My Children, along with Susan Lucci, the famous daytime queen of soap opera. She was one of the children, you know, always trying to break up me and my girlfriend. And then I was doing plays, and I did a musical off-Broadway called Love Me, Love My Children. And then I moved back to LA and did a whole bunch of guest star roles on Hawaii Five-0, the Waltons, Medical Center, shows like that. And then I ended up replacing Michael Douglas on Streets of San Francisco with Carl Malden. From that, I got cast in Battlestar Galactica without ever having to read, and played Captain Apollo on the biggest budgeted TV series in history at the time. And then I've done a slew of, like I said, so many episodic and movies of the week, and I was even on Santa Barbara, which is another soap, for a while. And then I've just done a lot of little indie projects that I find interesting. And I started writing novels and books. I've written 7 Battlestar books. I now have this new series called Guam, which I'm developing, and I wrote, coming out as an online social networking game. It's coming out as a novelization next year. There'll also be a series of graphic novels. It's a new, big, epic sci-fi series. I'm into very visionary, intelligent sci-fi. I've never been one for cheesy sci-fi. It's not my thing. Well, went out and wrote a whole script, and then we went out and shot for about a year, almost. Weekends, here, there, everywhere that we could, shooting. And I had like an epic, I had like so much film. And then I put it together into about 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And I remember playing it for Volker Engel, and he looked at it and said, "Well, you got a problem here." He said, you know, to really make this look right, make it look good, and the post and the CGI and all the stuff you're going to have to do is going to cost you a fortune. He says, "My suggestion to you is to cut it down to a trailer." And so he took me over to Dreamscape, and they did the modeling for the ships, and then they did some of the compositing, and I started learning about all of that. And then we also did the first edit. They did the first edit with me over there, which is a 2-minute thing. And then I brought it back, and all the stuff that we'd shot before, I basically, with Jay Wolfel and Scott, we borrowed shots from all that stuff we'd shot before, and we built the 2-minute into a 4-minute. And then we got Dean Cundy to come over for one day and shoot with his equipment and a cold hamburger, and we shot some extra shots that day, and then we just kind of put together the best of all of it, you know, and ended up with a trailer that debuted at Dragon Con that got this. It was like most powerful moment of my life to have the absolute silence at the end of this trailer, and everybody had heard about this trailer, this mythological Battlestar trailer that nobody knew if it was real or not. Then all of a sudden, here comes this panel, and they're going to play the trailer, and it was like all these Battlestar fans came out of the woodwork, and everybody showed up, and we had, God, thousands of people in there. It was huge. And we played it, and there was absolute silence at the end of it. I'm thinking, oh, they hated it, you know, and that's the worst fear, because fans are pretty particular. If you screw up things or change things too much, and
just ask to replace.
Well, my whole premise was not to change it, but to build upon it, so that I kept all the underpinnings of the original Battlestar, but that I up-leveled the ships, the designs, the technology, right, and added things without changing the feeling, the energy of it. And so I think we accomplished that, because after that long silence, there was this amazing explosion of cheering for like 10 minutes. Every filmmaker, everybody should have that moment of joy, of feeling like you hit a home run. And there was tears in people's eyes. Right. Well, believe it or not, I took that trailer everywhere. I mean, after we played it at several conventions, Dragon Con, we got all this notice, and we got all these rave reviews, and then Miramax called me, thinking nobody made a trailer back then. When I wanted to make a trailer 10 years ago, everybody laughed. You don't make a trailer without making the movie. Nobody made trailers without a movie back then. ultimately it was a labor of love by so many creative people coming together to work together and then ultimately doing the impossible. And then when we actually had a trailer that actually blew people away, especially 10 years ago when CGI was in its infancy, nobody could believe we did what we did. And Harvey Weinstein calls up and I'm freaked out. I couldn't even call back because I was terrified. I thought, I'm going to go to jail. You know, Universal didn't know we shot it. We didn't have a license. We weren't shooting it to make money, but we're shooting it as a presentation to inspire a revival. And so I honestly didn't know what to say. You know, he thought, well, you couldn't make this trailer without having the movie, and you must own it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. You know, so I didn't know. I really didn't know what to do. I probably should have called him and explained the whole thing, and maybe he would have said, "Hey, I'll go in with you," which is, by the way, what happened later. My thought was, it wasn't even about doing it without Glenn Larson. I was just trying to inspire a revival of the original show. That was my whole premise. And so, like I said, he started a lawsuit, and then everybody backed up. Nobody wanted to move forward when he started the lawsuit. Patriot Pictures backed up. Nobody wanted to get involved in all the litigation. I finally had realized Universal. I had taken up to Universal, by the way, and played it for them, to their vice presidents, and they were really shocked. They were expected to see a little backyard production. They saw something far more sophisticated. They were blown away, but they still couldn't fathom that there was an audience for Battlestar Galactica. I did one last thing, which was I wanted to do the 25th Battlestar Galactica anniversary, and I co-produced the convention with some of the DragCon people. And I did it up at the Universal City Walk. We played Battlestar the movie on the IMAX, believe it or not. It looked amazing. Except for the matte paintings, it actually looked absolutely amazing. And then I figured, you know, Glenn Larson wanted to do the Pegasus story, and then I heard Ron Moore and them were doing a reimagining, and Bryan Singer and Tom DeSanto wanted to do a continuation. Everybody wanted to do their own thing, right? Nobody wanted to do what I had put together in the books and the stuff. Everybody wanted to do their own thing, which I get, I understand. And I mean, there's more than one way to do anything. But I figured, okay, it's only going to be fair to invite everybody. Invite them all there, and they can all hash it out and let the fans make up their own mind what they think. And when I watched the 4-hour miniseries, I couldn't look at it objectively. I couldn't appreciate it. I just almost wanted to push it away. And the funny part was, it was when it got into the series and they actually started the episodes and they got into space, all of a sudden I'm watching this, and then for whatever reasons, the walls came down, the bias and prejudice went out the back window, and I was able to really start appreciating the characters, the story, the backstory, and I thought, oh my God, what they were getting into was what I had wanted to get into 30 years earlier. They were actually getting into the core plot of a post-apocalyptic world and trying to survive, and the life and death struggles of each character. And I got blown away by the artistry of it. And then when Glenn Larson asked me to come in, I was still torn, only because I had invested so much time and energy in doing a continuation and had fought so hard for that. But I said, you know, I've said no so many times in my life, being the idealistic Braveheart guy, you know. I'd crashed and burned so many times out of my idealism, and I said, why don't we say yes once and go in? What's going to hurt you to go in and sit down and listen? And I went down in there, and I really enjoyed talking to Ron Moore. And then the character of the Nelson Mandela style political revolutionary really intrigued me. Finally, I said, you know, I would love to do this. And he said, well, it's a guest star role, but it could turn into a continuing role. And ultimately it did. And anybody that tries anything new, that might be a beneficial, but change is hard for people to accept, right? And so it's like movies. People usually like to copy what was successful before. Most people don't like to really brave new ground because the insecurity is too high and the risk is too high. But, you know, again, I discovered that when people do get upset, you're doing something right, you know? There are going to be people out there that love you, and there are going to be people out there that hate you. And if you're trying to get everybody to love you, you're never going to do anything right in life. You know, so I always tell people, I said, you know, instead of trying to get approval from everybody, just know one thing. When everybody's upset and pissed off, know that you're going in the right direction.